Wow, they were waiting. Good to see you guys. We're all waiting to get in. Well, I'll go ahead and give my little speech here. Good evening, everyone. I know you probably all know me. I'm Lori Davin with NAVTA, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2021 NAVTA Leadership Symposium webinars. Tonight's topic is 10 tips to improve your job search in the digital age. And don't we all need that tonight? Our speakers tonight are Brian Barbeo and Aaron Kramer from YM Careers, and also Dawn, and we may have someone else from YM Careers here. Dawn will be handling the Q&A and the chat questions. Regarding questions, if we could hold the questions till the end of the presentation, that is the preferred method. So you can put your questions in the Q&A and we will get to them at the end. Also tonight, I would like to thank our partner, I Love Veterinarian, as they are raffling off a prize for one of the attendees tonight. So stay till the end, and Dawn will be pulling in a name from the attendee list, and that person will have to just send me their email via the chat, and we'll get that gift to you. So we would like to thank them again. And we also would like to thank YM Careers, who has sponsored this webinar for us tonight. Everyone is muted, so we don't hear any background noise. And it's going to be a recorded session, and it's should last 1 hour. If it goes over, that's good. And I just wanted to give a short bio on our speakers tonight. Brian is the Vice President of Association Placement Services at YM Careers, NAVTA's Career Center provider. Brian has almost 25 years experience in talent acquisition, including 15 years of placement agency experience and 10 years of corporate recruitment and leadership. Brian has created and delivered multiple training sessions designed to help employers and candidates improve the outcome of their job search processes. And then Aaron, we have Aaron Kramer. He's the Senior Customer Success Representative. He has been a Customer Success Manager with YM Careers for over 3 years, currently resides in New London, Connecticut, and is a graduate from SCSU with a degree in Marketing and Management. So I would like to turn it over to Brian and Aaron tonight.
Thanks, Lori. So as Lori mentioned in my brief bio, I have been recruiting now for 25 years. And when I think back to the start of my career, it was a time in the late 90s where I was still receiving resumes in the mail or via fax, and still posting ads in the newspaper. So certainly recruiting has evolved a lot since the late 90s. And with that, candidates have had to evolve how they conduct their job searches. And those who have done so successfully have found a lot more opportunity for themselves than those who haven't. And so part of my job over the 25 years has been to help coach and counsel thousands of candidates on their job search and put them in the best position to be successful. So with the 10 tips that I'll provide today, some of them may be things that you've heard before. Hopefully some of them, there will be at least some new to everyone on this session. But even for the ones that you may have heard before, it never hurts to do a little bit of reinforcement or reminding. I actually was talking with a candidate just yesterday morning about her job search. She's a seasoned HR professional with over 20 years of experience. And some of the tips that I was sharing with her, she said, you know, I've counseled other candidates multiple times on these things, but I forget to do them myself. So even for those of us who have been in the business for a long time, some of these tips are just good reminders of how to set yourself up for the most success in a job search. So if we can go to the first slide. So one of the first things that you're going to want to do, and definitely one of the biggest changes from the late 90s when I started my career, is really building your online brand. Most people think of LinkedIn, and certainly that's a great place to start. But I would recommend having your job and most recent employer listed on all of your social media sites. And the reason for that is not just recruiters, but there are actually tools now that mine social media for candidates with a particular skill set or in a particular demographic, or using geofencing to locate candidates in a particular area, that if your job or your skills are not on your Instagram profile or things like that, that you might not consider job social media sites, you won't be found by those employers. So, so consider anywhere that you're comfortable sharing that with a potential employer, having your current or most recent job listed on all of your social media sites. If you are a subject matter expert in a particular area, consider writing a post or a blog. It gives you a chance to show off that your knowledge and that you are passionate about what you do. Of course, you want to stay away from political or controversial topics, but you know, and not everybody is creative or has the time to write a blog. So just a suggestion, not a requirement. And then lastly, I'm often asked from a LinkedIn profile, should your LinkedIn profile mirror your resume? Meaning, you know, it's listing the job and the activities that you perform at that employer, or do you want it to augment your resume? Again, from a recruiting perspective, I would suggest mirroring your resume. I would lean toward that, because often that may be the first time or the way that an employer finds you. So before they've ever seen your resume, the LinkedIn profile is what is attracting them to you. And in some cases, recruiting platforms will even allow you to apply using a LinkedIn profile. So if your LinkedIn profile is set up mirroring your resume, you're just one step closer to completing that application. So if we can move to the next slide. So considering where to post your resume, as I mentioned, you know, having your social media profile is great, and having your job title or employer there is helpful, but it's certainly not going to have everything that your resume would have, other than maybe LinkedIn. Using sites like Indeed, Monster, Career Builder are great. There's a reason that they're some of the largest job boards out there, but that also means your resume is one of many, and as a veterinary technician is going to be alongside a plumber and a car mechanic and a doctor and who knows what else, right? So as recruiters are looking and sifting through resumes, you may unfortunately get mass mail for opportunities that are not necessarily best suited for you, because your resume came up in a search amongst many other job profiles because you happen to have a particular buzzword on your resume that their search caught. So for instance, you know, I did IT recruiting for 15 years at the start of my career. I can't code one lick of any language, COBOL, Java, you name it, but I still, 10 years later, since I stopped doing IT recruiting, get emails for jobs in the IT space because certain buzzwords appear on my LinkedIn profile or on my resume. So they're good, definitely can help get your resume a lot of attention by being on those big sites. But association sites like the NAVTA Career Center, and Aaron's going to talk to you about that more in a minute, can be much more successful because the recruiters that are coming to the NAVTA Career Center are specifically looking for vet techs. So you're much likely to get better matches for what you are looking for in your next step in your career. We can move to the next slide. The other thing, so it's one thing to put your resume out there and hope that recruiters find you. The other thing that I would strongly suggest is setting up job alerts. And some people may do this in place of posting their resume, right? They may not want to get those spam emails or recruiters calling them with jobs that are a 50% fit or not at all a match for what they're looking for. By setting up a job alert, you can be more in control of what opportunities come your way by setting the criteria specifically to what you're interested in. And you know that better than anyone. It provides you a higher level of confidentiality than posting your resume because if your resume is not out there, your current employer can't see it to know that you might be looking. And I would suggest doing this not just on job boards, but on company websites as well. So if there are particular employers that you would say, I would love to work at XYZ Veterinary Hospital, set up a job alert. Most of them will have one on their website to notify you when a job becomes available. That just saves you from having to go back and check it daily to see if anything new has been posted on their site. And I would encourage you to set them to run as often as possible. Some organizations will have posting time limits, so they may only post a job for a week. Some may stop after a certain number of applicants are reached. And some may not have any specific time limit or resume limit, but honestly, the recruiter or hiring manager, once they've identified 5 or 6 or however many candidates they might be looking for that appear to be a match, may just stop looking through the rest of the pile. So you wouldn't want to miss a great opportunity by being just a little bit late in applying to that job. So I would encourage you to run them real time if possible, or at least daily to receive those notifications. And you'll only receive notifications when there's a job that matches your criteria. So those are just a few tips from a very broad perspective in terms of how to leverage the digital social media age and use those tools to your advantage at a general level. But now I'll turn it over to Aaron to really dive into the NAVTA Career Center and how you can specifically leverage this specific tool.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that. So I'm going to be going over the NAVTA Career Center, how we can really utilize it to take advantage of all the resources that are in there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the NAVTA Career Center. We're just going to run through it real quick. I'm going to highlight a couple of pieces, some functionalities that will really help you along in your career journey, specifically setting up job alerts and also getting your resume into a platform where these recruiters are going to be actively looking and searching for vet techs. So let me just go ahead and shift around real quick. I do apologize. All right. So everyone should be able to see my screen now, and this should be the NAVTA Career Center that you're seeing. So the NAVTA Career Center is a very robust tool, especially for job seekers and members looking for the next step in their career journey. We have a couple of different built-in tools and resources that you can really take advantage of. So if you haven't had time to go and check it out, create a user profile, I highly encourage you to do that as step one. What we're going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to simply log in as a job seeker. To create an account, it's very, very simple. You have your first name, last name, email address, you set up a password, agree to the terms and the privacy policy, and you're good to go. You can start utilizing the Career Center in your efforts to further your career journey. So I'm just going to log into my account. So let's go ahead and log in. So this is the job seeker UI. This is your account page. From here, we have a couple of different functionalities that we can take advantage of. We have my job applications, my saved jobs, contact requests from employers that may have found your resume in the featured resume bank. But what we're going to take a look at first is the job alerts. So job alerts are a unique functionality on the Career Center. As Brian mentioned before, this allows you to be notified of whenever a new opportunity has been posted, specifically to the NAVTA Career Center. It's a very simple functionality to set up, very, very straightforward. You can create an alert, a name, So in this case, we'll just do vet tech to keep it short. You can set the frequency to run daily or weekly. Going along with Brian's tip, we want to set it to daily, so we're notified every time a new opportunity is posted on a daily frequency. We have advanced filters. So we have things like keywords. You can search a specific position title, narrow it down by location, job functionality. There's a species breakdown as well. And then we have our state. So once you have all these parameters set up, you can create your job alert. So let me just go ahead and set this up real quick. Create my job alert. Again, very, very easy functionality. Now the routine is set up. So tomorrow morning, when I log into my email address, at work, I look into my Outlook, I'm going to receive notifications from the NAVTA Career Center notifying me of these new opportunities that employers have posted to the Career Center. It gives you that advantage of knowing when the jobs hit the Career Center right away. You'll be able to see them before anybody else does. You'll get that notification right away. So you can go ahead and apply to them if it's something that interests you moving along down the line. The next functionality we're going to take a look at is the resume functionality. So under the job seeker dropdown, we have this manage resume section right here. We click on this, and this is sort of our resume, our resume tool. So from here, we have a couple of different options. You can create a resume online. You can upload your resume file, which I suggest it's definitely the easier of the two options. And once you have those resumes sort of uploaded and built out on the Career Center, you can have them public or private. Private keeps it from being featured in the resume bank, where employers can take a look at a tile, which kind of specifies some top level information that really sort of lets you stand out in the resume bank. If you keep it private, it won't be featured. However, if you make it public, employers and recruiters can come to the resume bank as they're utilizing the platform and find your specific resume, create a contact request to get in touch with you. That way you have control over whether or not you want to have a conversation with that particular recruiter or that employer. If yes, then they release contact information and you can begin those conversations. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a very simple resume. It's going to be my own from a couple years ago. I'm just going to take a look at that real quick. When you're uploading your resume, you also have an additional feature that we have built into the NAVTA Career Center, which is a free resume critique by Top Resume. The way this functionality works is as you upload your resume and you click off this yes or no section right here, it's going to give you this pop-up. If you select evaluate my resume, it's going to send your resume over to a contact at Top Resume. They are professional resume writers and reviewers, and they'll be able to provide additional feedback on what you may and may not want to do with your resume in your particular field. So let's just go ahead. Whoops, did not select the right file. Resume revised. Here we go. Upload resume. And as you can see here, it takes all the information that I've had in my resume and uploads it into the system. If I click Save My Resume, I can go ahead and have that featured in the resume bank and utilize that during the job application process as well. Depending on how you want everything set up or how the employers have their jobs, you'll be able to submit your resume directly to employers. So we're still going through, a couple of different resume sections. Contact information, pretty straightforward. Current location. We're located in the United States. I'm currently located in Connecticut, New London. Beautiful area, by the way. If you haven't had time to visit Connecticut, I would suggest it. Summary, objective, you have work history. It's going to autofill all this information as you've uploaded your resume. Again, if you're utilizing the resume builder, you'll be able to enter this information, have a little bit more control over what's being seen. But this is going to pull all that data from the resume file that you've uploaded. Now, as you're going through, you obviously want to make sure that you double check everything, make sure that all that information is correct, get through it, get down to the bottom, just double check and make sure I have no more required fields. Looks like everything is good to go. So we have preferences, relocation. You can specify where you want your location to be, additional information. And then we have sort of the overview of the resume. So when they click on your specific resume tile in the resume bank, they're going to see information like this. Now, please bear in mind, all contact information is kept confidential. The resume functionality does advise you to remove any contact information as well. So name, address, email address, phone number, things like that. Make sure you remove all that, make sure it's not in there. But any contact information is always kept confidential until you approve a conversation with that particular employer or recruiter. Now, down here at the bottom, save your resume. We have this little checkbox that says make my resume public and searchable by employers. This is going to make your resume searchable in the resume bank. If you click this off, it's going to keep that private and nobody's going to be able to take a look at the resume. So I highly advise those that are uploading their resume or building their resume online, make it searchable by recruiters and employers. Because again, these individuals are coming to the NAVTA Career Center to find candidates like you. They're actively seeking individuals with your experience, education, and certifications to fill the open opportunities. So we're going to go ahead and click Save My Resume. There are a couple of errors, but for the sake of time, I'm just not going to go ahead and go through the errors. But in general, this is how the functionality works. There's some additional features I want to highlight just to make your job search journey a little bit easier. We actually have a very robust job search tool and functionality. So this is what our functionality looks like. We have a list of opportunities over here on the left-hand side, set up in a pane view window where you can see your current job that you have selected while also scrolling through other opportunities. We also have built-in career insights and career planning tools. So career planning, career insights will let you get a deeper look into a particular occupation or industry. And then we also have career resources as well that you can take advantage of. This is going to be revamped in the coming months, so please keep an eye out for it. But it has tips on things like resume interviewing, career advancements, navigate the digital world, career coaching, and so on and so forth. And with that, that's sort of an overview of the NAVTA Career Center and a couple of functionalities for job seekers and members. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Brian, and he's going to continue. Go ahead and shift direction. Share. All right. Go ahead and resume.
All right. So thank you, Aaron. So now we've spent some time talking about how to make yourself visible or how to potentially locate opportunities for yourselves that you might be interested in. But here's where the rubber starts to meet the road, right? And which ones, once you find those opportunities, do you take that next step, put yourself out there, and actually submit your resume or move forward with the application process? And I think one of the things that I have found in my career, and certainly as you can see here, there was an HP study that narrowed it down even further, is some people, and in particular the study showed women, are less likely to apply to a position if they don't feel they're 100% match. The original thinking behind that study was that women were potentially less confident. I think there have been follow-on studies that show that may not be the biggest reason. It may play a factor in it. Women are also tend to be a little bit more empathetic and maybe concerned about wasting people's time when they're applying for jobs. Regardless of the psychology behind it, as Wayne Gretzky, for anybody who is a sports fan, may know or have heard him say, we miss 100% of the shots we don't take. And so if you don't apply, then there's 100% chance that you will not get that job. If you take the shot, especially if it's something that you meet the requirements for the role, maybe not the desired or preferred skills or experience, but if you meet the core required skills, often those preferred things are teachable, and the better employers will coach and will teach and will develop employees. So it's an opportunity for you to learn and grow and develop those 10% of skills that you might not match on the job description that you're looking at. So don't be afraid to take your shot and apply for an opportunity that you think could be the right fit for you. If we can go to the next slide, Aaron. And once you are in that process, know where your resume is presented, whether you keep it on a spreadsheet or you save confirmation emails. To me, that's potentially the easiest way. Almost every applicant tracking system or HR system will send you a confirmation email when you complete the application process. So the easiest thing might be to just, save those, file those away, so that you know where you've already submitted yourself. And certainly if you're working with any placement agencies, that you can be aware of where they have presented you, so that you don't get into a double submittal situation. Unfortunately, in my career, I have seen where some employers will throw out both resumes if they receive duplicate resumes from multiple sources, because they don't want to get in any sort of dispute about candidate ownership. So they'll just unfortunately disregard both, and there you, instead of doubling your chances to get an opportunity, you actually lose out on a potential chance for that role. So definitely make sure to keep track. And the other thing I mentioned in terms of working with an agency, always insist that they get your permission to submit your resume to any client before doing so. Again, so that you can keep track of where your resume is going, but also to make sure that they're representing you to opportunities that you actually believe are a fit and are of interest to you. So unfortunately, there are some agencies that don't always have the best interests of the candidate at heart. And so it's up to you to take control of that process and make sure that they're doing and representing you the way that you want to be represented. If we can move to the next slide, please. So this is a pretty intensive slide here. I'm not going to read everything to you. I think this will be shared, but just to highlight, some of the things in terms of the resume itself and some do's and don'ts. You do want to make your resume clean, easy to read. The average recruiter spends 10 to 15 seconds reviewing a resume before they make the decision whether or not they feel this candidate might be a fit. So having things that are relevant and highlighted right near the top of the resume is going to make those 10 or 15 seconds spent on the things that you want them to be reading about you. Listing professional associations like NAVTA, again, shows that you have an interest in your career, in what's happening in the industry, and that you're putting time and effort into that. So listing those things, certifications, licenses, obviously, very important. Spell check, I can't say it enough. Unfortunately, some managers will, if they hit a certain number, and every manager has a different number in their head, but if they see 3 typos, that may mean that's it for that resume. And they unfortunately don't focus on the content as much as they do the typos. And lastly, have someone else read your resume, because as much as spell check can catch a lot of things, and even grammar check now, it doesn't catch everything. Manager becomes manger. Manger is a perfectly legitimate word. Word will not catch it as a typo, but you aren't working for a manger. So you do want to have somebody else who isn't as close to the information. Take an objective look at it and read it. They'll see things that you just won't, no matter how many times you proofread it. Things to avoid. I see a lot of people list hobbies and organizations on their resume. I just don't know how skiing is relevant to being a great veterinary tech. Maybe it is, and I'm just missing the link. But again, if a recruiter is spending 10 to 15 seconds on your resume, you want them focusing on the most important things that are relevant to you and the opportunity that you're pursuing. There's an old school theory about having a 1-page limit. In the digital age, that's less relevant. You don't have to be able to fit your resume into an envelope anymore and get it there with a one stamp. And I think that's where a lot of that came from. So nowadays, the 1-page limit, especially if you're somebody who is a seasoned person with a lot of experience, is not something to put on yourself as an artificial limit. But at the same time, again, if they're only going to spend 10 to 15 seconds, a 10-page resume isn't going to do you any justice either, because the recruiter isn't going to get past page 2 at the most. So just really try and focus on the most relevant things. Don't put a picture on your resume unless you're applying to be a model or an actress. It just, again, is not relevant and potentially puts the employer in a difficult position. And my own personal pet peeve, just because I've seen it happen too many times to candidates, the objective section. One, it really serves no purpose unless you are just making an entire career change. And so you were working as a real estate agent and now you want to be a vet tech, then maybe having an objective section to help explain why your professional experience doesn't align with the role that you're applying for makes a little sense. But otherwise, it really serves no purpose. And unfortunately, I've seen it cost more candidates than it's helped, because the objective will say something like, I used to be a recruiter at a Hanover insurance company. And the objective on the candidate's resume would say to obtain a position with the Hartford. And it's like, well, that's a competitor of ours. If you want to work for the Hartford, go apply to their jobs, not the Hanover. So unfortunately, managers will see that and immediately they're turned off. And it's the first thing that they're seeing because the objective is usually right at the top of the resume. So personal thing, I suggest saving that real estate, making it, putting that to use in something that is more relevant to your background and the search that you're conducting. If we can move to the next slide, please. So one thing that really has not changed in the digital age is it is still just as much about who you know as what you know. That old adage still rings true. And so I definitely recommend, even in the digital age, leveraging your network. Now, in the digital age, there are ways to do that a little bit differently. You can utilize LinkedIn and you can look through your connections to see who works at the employer that you just submitted an application to, and see, do they happen to maybe know who the hiring manager is, and could they put in a good word for you, or the person in the HR department, and would they be able to help pull your resume out of the stack of resumes that they may have received. So reaching out to them is still important. And don't consider it being burdensome to your network. Oftentimes, many of them are probably your friends as well, and they want to see you be successful. They want to see you land a great opportunity. But also selfishly, many companies offer employee referral bonuses. And so if they can put in a word and say, hey, I know Lisa Jones just applied for this opportunity, and I think she'd be a great fit. If you end up being hired, that may mean some extra money to them, just for doing you a favor and providing that extra little bit of reference or encouragement for their employer to consider you. So definitely leverage your network, but your network may be limited, especially if you're considering opportunities outside of your local area. But even for local opportunities, utilizing placement firms or services can also be a way to extend your network, because those placement services have relationships. They're every day, all day, calling on clients, trying to identify who's hiring. They're working with those employers. Frequently, they know what those employers are looking for in terms of the candidates. They know about the environment most likely, and can share details about the employer with you that you might not be able to learn from a job posting. So placement firms and services, and obviously because they are usually only paid if they are successful in placing you, are going to go above and beyond to make sure that your resume gets noticed, that the employer, at least interviews you. They'll probably provide coaching services to help you through the interview process and maybe even, all the way through the offer negotiation process. So placement firms can be a huge asset and extension to your network, and don't be afraid to work with them. Again, as long as you control how they are representing you and where they are representing you. And next slide, please. So submitting your resume can often be the foot in the door, but almost every employer will also have an employment application separate from your resume at some point in the process. And I put this in here because while filling out an application is not probably going to help you get a job, it absolutely can prevent you from getting a job. Employment applications are often the basis for running a background check, whether that's employment, education, criminal. It's the employment application, not the resume that you submit, that is going to be the basis for that. Employment applications are legal documents. And so when you fill those out, and at the bottom, when you sign testifying that the information that you've provided is accurate, if they find something to be inaccurate or false, that can be grounds for rescinding an offer, even for terminating an employee after the person has already started, if that information doesn't come out until after the person has started. So I put this in there because it is important. It can seem tedious, I know, but when you're filling them out, please don't guess. Please always be honest. I've worked for many employers who, if you disclose something in your background, they would still hire you depending on how serious the issue was. But if you didn't disclose it, no matter how minor it was automatic grounds for rescinding an offer. So being upfront about it is always the right way to go. And the next slide. And so then, this is where things have definitely changed in the digital age. And in particular, obviously, over the last year and a half, COVID has really forced companies to embrace video technology when it comes to interviewing. Many companies just would not do an in-person interview at all. But the technology was around prior to COVID, and definitely from a recruiting perspective has created efficiencies where I think it is going to become more and more prevalent even after an eventual return to normal from the COVID pandemic here. So a few tips to be more successful in a video interview. The first is to log on early. Technical issues happen. It's already, or it can be, very nerve-wracking to be in an interview situation. Video interviews can sometimes be even more nerve-wracking. So the last thing that you want is a technical issue to then cause you to be even more panicked because you're struggling to log in, or you can see them but can't hear them, things like that. So I encourage you to log in early, test out the video and audio technology. Some sites may even require you to download some software, and so you don't want to be a minute before your scheduled interview and then finding out that you need to download an extension or a piece of software that takes 5 minutes because now you're going to be late for your interview. So, so log in. It just gives you a chance to make sure everything is going to be as optimal as possible for the interview. Asynchronous interviews are something that are newer, definitely becoming more and more prevalent. My son is 18, got a job at Target working, in the back room, job that many people have applied to, I'm sure. And so they use a technology called HireVue. It allowed them, or it allowed him to conduct his interview at night when he was available and comfortable, and record his answers. And it allowed Target to review his answers at a time that was convenient for them. So the asynchronous interview is that recorded interview where it's not live, me talking to you across a Zoom or something like that. But it's a technology where the employer records their questions and then you record your response back to them. Like I said, the advantages are that you can, conduct those where you're comfortable, when it's comfortable for you. The advantage for the employer is they can review the answers to those 30 of them in an hour, versus if they were to conduct a live interview with somebody, they're probably going to conduct maybe 2 video interviews in an hour. So they can go through a lot more of those interviews and review candidates much more quickly by doing that asynchronous interviewing. Some of them even have built-in artificial intelligence components that can score how you answer the questions that they ask and compare you to some of their top performers, which then makes the recruiter's job theoretically even easier, because they can start with the people who scored the highest and work their way down the list from there. I still, being somewhat of an old school recruiter, have some concerns about that scoring piece, but certainly the video technology itself can be much more efficient and effective. So just something to be aware of, that that exists out there now. It is becoming more prevalent, and it can add a little bit of another factor when it comes to kind of I'll say the awkwardness that can come with video interviewing, because now you don't even have the virtual interaction with somebody on the other end. You're speaking to your camera on your laptop, responding to a pre-recorded question. So some things to think about there are to still treat that camera as if it was a person on the other side, keeping that eye contact, and I use the air quotes there, with the camera, because eventually there will be a person on the other end reviewing it as if they were on the other side of the camera. So you want to be as engaging as possible, realizing that you are speaking to a piece of machinery in a video camera while you're conducting this. Some of the other advantages or things that can be built into asynchronous interviews, some employers will give you multiple retries. So you can answer a question and decide, that wasn't my best. I know I can do better, or I want to give a different example. And you can say, nope, delete and re-record. And you can, take another shot at giving what you putting your best foot forward. So, so there are some advantages to asynchronous interviewing for both sides. And I do want to point those out so that you try to take advantages of where it can work to your benefit. And certainly one of them is the chance to think through your answer and even potentially try your answer out multiple times before you finally submit the end product. And the last thing on here is, again, going to that answer itself, right? So whether it's in person, video, phone, doesn't matter. Many organizations are asking what we call behavioral-based interview questions. And the reason for that is behavioral-based interview questions have been shown to be more effective at finding out what somebody's true experience is than asking the traditional questions of, just tell me about this project that I see here on your resume, or how many years of experience do you have working with X? And better predictor than asking the hypothetical or abstract questions, like if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be, or some of those other crazy Apple and Google questions that that they think are so powerful. Behavioral-based interviewing has been shown to be the most effective interviewing, and you'll know when you're in a behavioral-based interview because all of the questions will start with something to the effect of, tell me about a time when. So, tell me about a time when you had a difficult coworker, or you missed a deadline, or something like that. And so when responding to a question like that, you want to think STAR. the acronym. So situation, task, action, result. So the situation is, when on your resume, just kind of paint the picture for them. So what employer, how far back in your career are we going? Did this happen? The task. So what was the situation and what was your role? Why are you involved in whatever is about to unfold? The action is, what did you do specifically? And this is where candidates can sometimes get tripped up because people either out of modesty or because they really were just a smaller piece than they might be portraying, will use the word we a lot. And if they're a trained interviewer, they'll catch that with the we, and they're not hiring your team, they're hiring you. So if they catch it, they will ask, okay, so but what specifically was your role in whatever this eventual outcome was that you're about to tell me? Because they want to know, what specifically did you do to help bring about this result? And then of course, the last piece is the result. And sometimes candidates will fall short of that. They talk about the task, they talk about the action, but they neglect to mention whatever the outcome was. And sometimes the result may not be positive. One of the behavioral based questions that you may be asked is, tell me about a time you made a mistake at work. Well, that's not going to have a positive outcome. They specifically want to know about a time things didn't go perfectly for you. And that's okay. But one thing then, if you ever find yourself in that situation, is to turn it into a positive at the end, right? So if you do have a mistake that you made, what did you learn from it, right? What would you do differently next time to prevent that? That's really what the employer wants to hear with that question is, what did you learn from it? They don't really care about the mistake. Maybe they do if it's a huge mistake. But the real point of that question is they want to know, how do you learn from your mistakes and what steps do you take to try to prevent them from happening? Because most employers are going to be okay with you making a mistake. We're humans, it happens. But when the mistake is repeated over and over again, that's when it becomes an issue. And so they want an employee who they know cares about the quality of their work and will admit when they make a mistake and will take steps to make sure that that doesn't happen again. If we can go to the last slide. So obviously all of this is working up to, we hope to receive an offer, right? And so there are a few things that I would say about offers. It's, as a recruiter, helping people try to land these dream jobs. We've found an opportunity that seems to be the perfect fit in the right location. They love everybody that they met. They get an offer that is at, or maybe even above, the level of pay that they were hoping for. And then they say, well, yeah, but it can't hurt to ask, for a little bit more. The worst they can say is no. Well, unfortunately, that isn't always true. And in my 25 years, I have unfortunately seen too many times, because I feel like even one time is too many times, where a candidate has lost out on an opportunity because the employer or the hiring manager did not want to negotiate, did not take that response positively, either because they weren't a mature hiring manager and just reacted negatively kind of out of petulance. In some cases, I've seen that. In other cases, it was at least they portrayed it as really having the candidate's best interest at heart and said, well, unfortunately, that's the best that we can offer. And I don't want somebody coming in here who already is disappointed, right? I want somebody to come in who's really excited to be here in every way about the offer that we're presenting. And so if the offer financially is not what the candidate's expecting, then we're going to move on to plan B. And they don't even come back to the candidate with, nope, we're not going to counter. That's the best offer. They just withdraw the offer and move on. So it is something to be handled delicately. I'm not saying that you should never counter or negotiate. I'm just saying really be thoughtful about it. And if the offer is in the range that you were hoping for, are you really willing to risk losing this opportunity over $1,000 or $2,000, whatever it might be, just because you wanted to take the shot, right? This is kind of the inverse of what I said earlier about you miss 100% of the shots. Well, here you have the offer in hand. And so do you really want to throw away that shot by asking for something that really isn't that important to you? If it is, then absolutely counter, because you don't want to go into an opportunity where you're already disappointed. So I'm not saying don't negotiate. I'm just saying be careful. This is where if you're working with a placement service, they can be very helpful because they can be sort of an intermediary and a little bit of a buffer and help deliver that message in a way where it's not reflective on you as much as them, and try to make sure that they don't cost you an opportunity. The other thing that I will say is, there are salary and relocation sites out there. Those are guidelines. They're taking national data, which can vary widely depending on cost of living, things like that. They're taking secondhand data in some cases. So they're guidelines, but they should not be treated as gospel. Just if you see that, salary.com says your role should pay $20 an hour and you're being offered $19.50. Is that really that far off from what the recommendation is saying? I would say no. If the site says it should pay 100,000 and you're being offered 50,000, then you might question, where is this employer coming from and why are they offering you what they're offering you? But I think they're good reference points, but shouldn't be treated as or treated with 100% accuracy. There's a margin of error there. And the other thing is being as objective as possible. So when you're looking at those sites, if they're saying the average salary, well, the average salary might be for somebody with 10 years of experience. And if you have 2 years of experience, then you need to realize that I'm probably not going to get average because I just don't have as much experience as this particular site is stating. So it can be hard. Everybody likes to believe that they are worth more than they're being paid now, or that they are better than average. And I'm sure you all are in your own way. But when it comes to things like offer negotiation, those are where, unfortunately, emotions can run high and can be the thing that derails an opportunity that has made it through so many hurdles to get to that point, only to fall apart at the very last second. So it's kind of, again, using another sports analogy, it's not over till it's over. The offer stage is that last step where it's still not over until the offer is accepted. And so rely on people. If you're working with a placement service, definitely leverage them and their expertise on how to handle offer negotiations so that we make sure, or you make sure that your dream opportunity becomes a reality, because that's what all of this has been for, starting from building your online brand all the way through what can be sometimes difficult and lengthy interview processes, is to have that positive outcome. And that's really the thing that, for me, in the 25 years of doing this, is the part that keeps me coming back every day. The joy that I can see on a candidate's face or hear in their voice, because so much of it's over the phone now, when they get that offer that they're excited about and they're going to accept, is what makes all of this worth it. And obviously, for for you being the person getting that offer, that's what it's all about, right? So, so hopefully if you follow these 10 tips, you will be in a better position. There's no guarantee of success on every interview or every process, because there's other candidates, that are also competing and potentially following these same tips to be successful. But if you're doing them and you're doing them consistently, you'll definitely improve your odds to landing that dream job. So with that, we will open it up to any questions, and Aaron and I and Dawn are happy to answer them. And we also have a giveaway.
We do.
So
So,
one question.
oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Dawn.
Yeah, I have a couple questions and then had some like that were private in the chat. So I wanted to get to those as well. So real quick, Leanne had asked, are there recruitment companies that have a special interest in veterinary medicine, especially for licensed technicians, and how would I find them? And then she had asked a little later of kind of a follow-up. Many of the job listings I see for vet tech specifically say no outside recruiters. So I think with that question, she's asking like, how could I handle those outside of, I think, a recruitment support? But if I'm interpreting this incorrectly, Leanne, please hop in the Q&A and correct me.
So to answer the first question, I would say, yes, I'm sure there are placement services in the vet tech space. Some of them may even advertise on the NAVTA career site. But if you were to Google veterinary technician placement service, I'm sure you would come up with some names in the space. Or again, this is another great place to leverage your network and see if any of your peers have utilized a service, because they can share who the reputable ones are and who was able to successfully help them find an appropriate opportunity. In regards to employers who say no outside firms, those are obviously places that you can and should present yourself if you're interested in the opportunity, because a placement service, they're not willing to pay a fee, and therefore a placement service would not be able to help you get into those employers. If you're not sure, you can start with the placement service, and then hopefully they would tell you if there's an employer that is not willing to work with you and not willing to work with them, and therefore you should just apply directly.
Great. So this actually, your answer, Brian, actually made me think of a question.
Sure.
So how would, like, say if Leanne had saw a post that was really interesting to her, but they wouldn't engage with an outside recruitment firm, how could she use maybe LinkedIn to get into that company or get an introduction to the hiring manager or the recruiter for that position?
To me, the best way to leverage LinkedIn in that situation is what I mentioned earlier, which would be to look up that employer and see if anyone in your network works there. Because reaching out to one of them, somebody who's maybe a former coworker, a friend, somebody who is a warm contact, we call it, right? Someone who knows you, is better to reach out to and see if they might be able to help influence from the inside, versus trying to look for who might be the recruiter at that organization, or trying to guess or find who might be the hiring manager. One, unless it's a really small organization, that might be difficult, and you may end up pinging a lot of people who are not the right person. And unfortunately, then that can start to create a negative taste in the employer's mouth. Even if you happen to hit on the right person the first time, it put yourself in their shoes. It can be a little, I hate to use the word creepy, but it just is a little online stalker-ish, that a candidate has kind of try to track you down and circumvent the process in any way. So it can unfortunately backfire on you to get a little too aggressive with something like that. But leveraging the people that you know through LinkedIn who might work there is absolutely fair game, and I would highly recommend it.
Great. Perfect. That's perfect. That's great advice. So Carrie had asked, how would you address in a resume, pardon me, a period of time in which you extensively volunteered with a charitable animal organization, but didn't actively work for an employer? So like, how would you put that on your resume in a way that's really actionable from an employer perspective?
So one thing is, again, you want to make sure you're definitely being honest. So you do want to make sure, however you're listing it, that it is very clear that's volunteer experience, not professional experience. But I do think it's absolutely relevant and should be put on your resume. I guess part of my answer is a little bit of it depends, because if you're an experienced person who also has this volunteer experience, I might put that toward the end of your resume as a separate section of other volunteer experience or related volunteer experience, and then list, those things. Because again, that, similar to belonging to a professional association, shows you're really dedicated and passionate about the work that you do. So even in your free time, you're involved in animal activities. If you're a less experienced or inexperienced person, then maybe you put that information toward the top right after your education. Or if you were doing it, I think the question was about a gap. So if maybe you took some time off to care for family or whatever for a few years, but during that time stayed involved in your passion, then you could put it in that gap space. But again, make sure to list it as volunteer experience. So maybe instead of listing veterinary tech, you list your title as volunteer for that organization, just because you do want to be honest about it. But I think it is absolutely relevant and appropriate to put it on your resume.
Perfect. So we have 1 minute left. There is one quick question, which I do want to get to, but real quick, while everyone was still here, I wanted to do the quick announcement on the giveaway from iloveveterinary.com. So they're going to give away a stethoscope tag, and I just kind of randomly picked a name out of the proverbial hat and had picked Karina Soto. So congratulations. And Karina, if you can enter your email, if it's this, or if it's the same email that you registered with, we can grab that from the registration list. If you want that sent to another email address, please drop that into the chat area with a private message to the hosts, and we will get that sent over to you. And we have a couple more questions. So Brian and Aaron, if y'all don't mind staying on, that would be great. Or we can answer these via email after the fact.
No, I can stay for a few
Okay.
more minutes. Yep.
Same.
Okay. So Jolyn had asked, and I'm sorry if I didn't say that right. Is the NAVTA Career Center available to student chapter members? And she had said, my students begin their job search prior to graduation. I would incorporate that information into the careers course if this is something they can access. So Aaron, you might want to
Yes.
on that one.
Yes. So the NAVTA Career Center is open to all individuals that are looking for job opportunities within the vet tech industry. All they need to do is visit the NAVTA Career Center, go over to the job seeker interface, the job seeker dropdown, click on the My Account, create an account, upload a resume, utilize all the different functionalities, job search, whatever it might be. But it is definitely open to all users looking for an opportunity within the vet tech industry.
Perfect. And I feel like y'all had talked a little bit about getting resume help, but just kind of bouncing off of Jolen's question, if there are students, they may not have a lot of experience. Are there resources on the NAVTA Career Center that can help them create, maybe that it could even be like almost a first resume?
Yes, so we have, the career resources drop down within the job seeker interface as well. If you hover over the job seeker, you obviously get a drop down with a couple of different tabs. there's a specific tab that says resources, which should contain plenty of content and tools for you to utilize to help build upon that resume, regardless of your experience level. And once you create that job seeker account, you can take that content and the resources that you've utilized and even build your own resume on the NAVTA Career Center, or even upload a resume that you built off the platform and upload it so it can be used for the job application process.
Perfect.
And then there was the resume review service too, even after
Yeah.
uploading it to.
Correct.
Great. Yeah, no, I think that's really great advice. So, Jolyn, you can definitely get some resources over on the Career Center to help you with that, and obviously help your students as well. We had one final question. When listing a professional organization, should one write out the entire name of the organization, or is, for instance, NAVTA good enough?
So I would recommend, just because of the technology involved, some is more sophisticated than others, spelling it out, just because some search technology, like I said, may not be sophisticated enough to understand NAVTA, or the recruiter may not be savvy enough to include NAVTA in their search string, but they're definitely going to include veterinary and tech. And so if you spell it out, you will come up in that recruiter or that software's search, versus NAVTA. You may come up in some and you may not in others. So I think to maximize your opportunities, I would recommend spelling it out.
Yeah, I would just add there too, just being in marketing, that there can be, now NAVTA is probably more unique than others, but there can be several organizations with a similar or the same acronym. So that might.
Right, or that
help you.
acronym might even mean something else. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, like AMA could be American Marketing Association. It could also be American
Medical
I know
association.
something else. Medical. Yeah, exactly. So, all right. That was all the questions that we had. Wait, let me make sure. I saw something else come out. Oh, one last question. Brian, how do you feel about adding volunteer activity for church or political candidate party to a resume? That's a great question, especially for today's climate.
Yeah, I personally would not. I think if we went back to the slide on the resume do's and don'ts, adding hobbies, political affiliations, religious activities, they may be things that you're passionate about, but they're not things that an employer can consider and actually need to actively try to stay away from when considering you as a candidate. So putting that on your resume potentially even puts the employer in a difficult position if they at some point determine that you may not be the candidate for them, to go above and beyond to make sure that they're clear that it had nothing to do with your religious affiliation or political affiliation. So I would strongly advise not to include that.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I'm a hiring manager too, and there are things that we, come across that we're like, oof. So I appreciate that advice.
Yeah, even if your political party affiliation happens to agree with the manager,
yes.
it's not
unless it's relevant, I think, and to your point earlier, unless it's relevant to the position, it's probably
right. If you're applying for a political advisor position or to be part of somebody's campaign,
sure. You might want to include.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, guys, I think we have answered all the questions, and I really appreciate everybody's time today. And I'm going to turn that over to close out to Lori.
Yes, thank you, Brian, Aaron, and Dawn. Very good webinar tonight. Really, I learned a lot myself also. I'd like to thank YM Careers for sponsoring it, and thank everybody for attending. If you have any questions, you can email us, or their information is there. But NAVTA is always looking to help you out on the Career Center. We think it's a really good product, so really dig into it after what you learned tonight. And if nobody else has any other questions, thanks to all and have a good evening.
Thank you, Lori. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Aaron. It was good to see y'all.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.